Welcome to TruPowur, home of the most powerful marketing tools, training, and technology on planet Earth. Get ready to earn, enjoy, and experience more than you ever dreamed was possible. If you're tired of just getting by and ready to really thrive, then buckle in and listen up. Here's your host, Matt Fox.
Hello and welcome this fine day to TruPowur Academy. And today we are going to be looking into a deeper dive as to what makes a good deal with high probability or a bad deal with low probability, and what deals are in the middle for commercial solar. In this training, our friends at WattHub will review real life deals and discuss the nuances of what turns a commercial deal into a paycheck. That's why we're all here. So without any further ado, let's join Chris Leonard, the Chief Revenue Officer, and John McDonald, the founder and CEO of one of our suppliers, WattHub, to cover real designs and utility analysis to unlock the true value of commercial solar. So looking at net metering caps, NEM 3, and building types will all be discussed. And this is going to have a lot of tremendous visual aids with commercial solar in mind. So turning it over to you, gentlemen, take it away.
So what we're going to be going over today is good and bad commercial solar deals. Commercial solar deals is unlike residential. It's a different animal. And so you have to be really good at construction, really good at estimating, really good at finance, and you have to know those features inside and out. So what we're going to be going over today is a deal probability matrix. We made it. I'm a spreadsheet wizard, so I made it in Excel. You'll see that. The keys to making a good deal, turning into a paycheck. We're going to take a look at what the win-win states are around the country, and then good deals, bad deals, and on the fence deals. We're going to do a little cutaway, and we're going to do real-life examples of all good deals, bad deals, and so-so deals, and what can make them into high probability. So I'd say let's get started. All right, we're not going to take too much time on this. Myself, John McDonald, been in the business 16 years now. This is a little old. Finance expert, been doing commercial solar since 2008. That's all we've ever done. No residential, no utility scale stuff, just small, medium commercial. I co-founded a EPC called Sunrenew Solar, co-founded WattHub, which is a turnkey development and technology platform. Been doing this a long time. We have a lot of experience. And then I have the pleasure to team up with Chris Leonard, who there's not a person out there that has something bad to say about him except for me. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Love it. Yeah, I can second. Love working with John. But like you said, I'm Chris Leonard. I'm the CRO over here at WattHub. I was in residential solar for 6 years. I was a sales trainer, as you can see. Traveled across the country training people how to sell residential solar door to door. I love taking care, obviously, of clients. That's my number one thing is integrity and honesty, and that's what we always strive for here at WattHub, and why it was a great fit for me to work with John. I know what customers need. I narrow it down, and as you can see, I squeezed polysilicon so hard it turned into monocrystalline, so it's pretty cool.
I've seen it. All right, let's jump right into the deal probability matrix. A lot of experience went into this. I mean, we do over 100, 120 proposals a month of just pure play commercial and all across the country. So we have experience in markets, and we have a little wizard named Evan that does a lot of that in the background. So we see deals from California to Maine, all across the country, and we're trying to break it down, make it easy for everybody to understand what they have, because we oftentimes get projects, which we built a technology platform surrounded behind. You put in the deal and it comes out successful, and we pay a nice referral fee. With that, we get a lot of projects referred to us. Some of them are high probability, some are medium probability, but a lot of them, unfortunately, are low probability. And we don't like delivering bad news. Nobody likes hearing it. A lot of people bring us deals which they think is gold, and it turns out to be a lemon. So looking at the left column here, avoided cost. We're going to talk a lot about avoided cost. It is pure play solar savings, not including demand charges. Because if you're familiar with rate schedules, commercial 8 times out of 10 has demand charges in it, and solar technically doesn't offset, but it can offset those. So avoided cost is what is the kilowatt hour charge that solar will offset. And the only tool out there to actually calculate this correctly is Energy Toolbase. So another reason to team up with us, because we have plenty of licenses to do proposals. So as you can see, 4 cents, there's some 4-cent markets out there. Illinois is a 4-cent market. Texas can be a 4-cent market. 24 cents all the way at the top. That's California. That's maybe Alaska. And then some small commercial in like New Jersey, Massachusetts may fall into that. Then on the bottom, you have system size. Obviously, the bigger you go, the cheaper it is to install. And so there's a scale for that. And on the right-hand side is we have EPC cost. So $1.35 a watt, I've seen deals get done for that. $4.50 a watt, I see a lot of deals get done for that. And so what puts it into these medium probability categories is avoided cost and EPC cost. If you can get your EPC cost low enough, you can do low probability deals. They will close. If you can't and you need to actually make money doing commercial, then you're going to need to look at certain areas and states that have higher avoided costs, which we're going to show you those. So stay tuned on that. Any comments, Chris?
No, it's just very important to really understand avoided costs. That would just be the key thing that I would recommend everybody learn what that means. Is that tells you if you got a deal or if you don't got a deal.
It's true. 10 cents. That's the goal to get. So if you get a project, look at the utility bills, take out demand charges, calculate it, and see if it's 10 cents. And that'll give you a litmus test, a sniff test of whether you got something that may turn into a paycheck.
One other thing I'd like to point out on that real quick, John, is obviously an EPC price can dictate if you're going to have a project or not, like John said. So many times we get projects brought to us that they're priced out in that $4 range, $4 EPC cost, but you can the avoided cost is only 10 cents. So if you look at this chart here, clearly that's not going to be a project that's going to pencil very well. Meaning the customer's not going to have a good return on investment, and as business owners, that's what they want. So just a little thing to point out there.
Excellent point. All right, let's look at some keys to commercial opportunities. So we got a couple more slides, then we're going to jump into real projects. But the keys to commercial opportunities are avoided cost. The true solar savings tabulated by Energy Toolbase is what this customer is going to save with solar. What WattHub does, the magic behind WattHub is really looking at all potential possibilities, moving the toggle, system size high, system size low, batteries, no batteries, just moving things around, west facing. We try to develop as a value add to get the customer the best possible ROI possible. And takes a lot of time and a lot of eyes on our process that goes through our development cycle, but that's what all the alerts are and the stages that you see in your portal. So avoided costs, true solar savings, that's probably the number one commercial opportunity that says, is there a deal here? Incentives, it's big. Incentives incentivize projects. So REAP grants, 50% REAP grant, window closes soon, but some states may extend, some states may not extend. It might be a 25% grant after that. But what we have seen, we see 10, 12-year ROIs, add a REAP grant in, it's a 1-year ROI. Crazy good. I mean, why would you not do that deal? There's SRECs. You've got New Jersey has a program, Pennsylvania has a program, Massachusetts has a quasi program that might be exhausted, but utility incentives, state tax credits, and the Inflation Reduction Act benefits, which we're going to touch on. We're not going to go too far down that rabbit hole. So incentives help make a project good. Constructability, ease of install versus complicated. This tells the story. Is there mechanical littered all over the roof and there's no usable roof space? Is it next to a high rise that casts shade all over the whole solar array? There's a lot of deals, including carports, how easy it is to go through a parking lot, proximity to the interconnection. There's a million things that we looked at. And so again, we design to constructability, because constructability lowers that EPC cost and makes your deal fall into a medium or high probability. Shading, we touched on, trees, neighboring buildings, net metering policy. This is also a big one. Net metering is getting attacked around the country. We all saw what happened in California. We went from NEM 2 to NEM 3. California is still a gold mine. If you have projects there, we will find value in them, and we will present something that makes financial sense. And 9 times out of 10, we could throw a loan on it and it'll pencil without a dime out of their pocket. PPAs are still excellent in California. So a lot of commercial financing works. But net metering across the country, Massachusetts, we're running into high and long interconnection cycles. Sometimes utilities are getting oversaturated in their grid, which is something we're going to need to foresee and forecast is, will they even let you interconnect? So that's a question that is popping up around the country. And then lastly, a key to commercial opportunities is the champion. The champion is the person behind the deal that wants it, and they want it for the right reasons. They don't want it because it's going to save them 90% of their electricity bill and they have no payments ever. You can sell a financial model all day long, but you need the champion. And that's what we found in our 16 years of experience, that gets the most deals done is having a champion that wants to do it because it's the right thing to do, because it's renewable energy, because it helps cover their roof and it might elongate their roof life. So there's a lot of reasons why people want to do deals, and finding the champion is key. This next one, gold. So if you're a rep and you're figuring out, hey, where do I prospect for commercial deals? Use this as gold. Well, we can also send this out after the webinar, but this is just average avoided cost. So what is solar going to save somebody? And this is generic, this is average, this is not specific to any one deal, but this is what we see with the volume of projects that we do. We've done thousands and thousands of commercial proposals, and it all boils down to avoided costs. So just quick touch on California, avoided cost, even with NEM 3 is still 22 cents. You can finance that all day long. Arizona, where I'm sitting, is 11 cents. You can do a lot here. Our sun is more powerful than any other state. Where Chris is sitting, Utah, that's a tough market. We still do deals there, but it's 6 to 8 cents on average. And then if you want a big system, then you're going to be under that. You're going to be at 5 and 6 cents because there's no export policy. They buy for really low rates. So that relates to another one of the keys we just touched on, is the policy behind the state. Then you go to the East Coast. You've got New York, you've got Pennsylvania, you've got New Jersey that are all good. Massachusetts, Rhode Island is good. You fall down to the Carolinas, not looking so good anymore. 6 cents, 8 cents. Texas and Florida, biggest residential markets. We get tons of proposals sent to us. It's just really hard to make a compelling economic case with 6 and 7 cent avoided cost. And now if you're doing solar proposals in a different software and you're getting a different number, be very, very careful. I'd have us review that for you. But jumping in, so here's another thing that we touched on is IRA incentives. There's still people out there that don't know the Inflation Reduction Act has tax credit adders. So some of you do, probably most of you do, but some people, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, runs a residential shop. We were talking about energy community. He's like, what's that? So some people don't know, and it's just low income, energy community, and domestic content or tax credit adders. So they add 10% to the baseline 30%. So getting a low income adder, I'd say the probability is low, but there's a good chance that you can apply for it and get it. So you got to apply for it. It's a low LMI application. Energy community, it's just, there's a high probability of getting it. If you fall into the map, you'll get it. It's a 10% tax credit adder. A lot of Southern California's energy community, a lot of Texas's energy community, and a lot of the Northeast is energy community. And then you have domestic content. So this is still a long conversation that we're not going to get into today, but there's only one manufacturer, and I'm not afraid to tell who it is. It's Helene that has their stuff together. We're going after a couple of projects and we want the domestic content adder. So you gotta have 100% steel and iron as domestic content, and then manufactured content, the other section, the other side to domestic content that you have to prove is the tricky one. And so racking, inverters, modules, all big components to a solar project. Now we're starting to see uniracks and panel claws and say, oh yeah, we're 100% domestic content. Wonderful. Inverters, Solar Edge just came out with an optimizer, domestic content. Wonderful. Panel manufacturers, no one's touching it except Helene. So even Q Cells, Jinko, JA, everyone in Boviet, everyone building a big manufacturing facility in the United States today will assemble their modules here, but that doesn't count. So what counts is on a component level, and it's 100% geek work. But we got on the phone with KPMG, one of the big four accounting firms, and Helene, and they said, this is how we do it. And they said, great, perfect, let's do it. So I think they're going to be worked into a few of our projects moving forward, but it is a challenging adder to get. And then there's direct pay for nonprofits. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The nonprofit has to be a 501 something, and they can apply for the nonprofit. They have to register the project, get a number. There's a little bit of compliance that has to do with that. So part of our service is helping navigate this complex direct pay process for your nonprofit clients. So we can do a loan, or nonprofits can buy cash, and it opens up a different way to finance because they can get a direct payment in lieu of the ITC. And so that direct payment is either 30%, or if you have an adder, it's 40%, or if you have two adders, it's 50%. Or if you do domestic content, it's 60%. You can get a check for 60% of the project costs for your nonprofits. And so how do you apply as a portal and all that stuff? So just wanted to give an overview on that. Did I miss anything, Mr. Chris?
I think the biggest thing is oh yeah, no, you had touched on it. The low income is just apply for and it's not guaranteed. So that one is tough to actually offer or show in the numbers. And that's one thing that's important, is knowing when you should or should not put these into a proposal.
Yeah, that's the key, is you don't want to promise something that you can't deliver,
Yeah.
like Chris said. So we took out low income for a while out of our proposals, but based on the last round, they had extra capacity. So guess what? We're putting it back in. So it's going to be a volume-based incentive.
Right.
All right. Well, it's breakout session time. Now it's time to look at real deals. Who wants to do it? Woo! All right. And we're gonna stop sharing my screen, and we're gonna give the share over to Chris.
So everybody, we're going to jump into good deals, bad deals. First thing that I'm going to go over is a good deal as an example. So there's a few key things that we've already touched on. The price per watt that we have it priced at, the EPC cost, right? The avoided cost. And then as far as constructability, is how is the project being built? So here's a project that we're going to jump into that shows a system design and layout. You can see this one's a little unique because they did do a FIT, which is a feed-in tariff with the utility company, which essentially didn't offset their meter, just went directly into the utility company and they get paid for that power. Now they're wanting to add more to offset their system. So to do the net metering policy, this is 180 kilowatts. And you can see, obviously, it's very important to know what the tilt and azimuth is, because that will help dictate or will dictate your true avoided cost. If you got a 90 degree, 180 to 120 degree azimuth, it's going to all have a different yield per kilowatt hour. So let's go ahead and jump into this one as far as how this one looks and how it pencils. This one is pretty aggressive. You can see, in order for this customer to really want to move forward, they were expecting a pretty fast return on investment. Everybody's a little different. Some owners love a 7-year below. Some will even buy at that 10 and 11 year. But right here, this one's at 207 per watt. We have a DC system size of 180 kilowatts with a 10 degree tilt with 178 degree azimuth, which you can see here in this geographical location that's located in Rhode Island. We got a 1275. On here, you can see that the customer is actually being charged 22 cents per kilowatt hour and $12.17 per kW. One thing that's really important that a lot of people get wrong is if there is a different rate schedule as well, that can definitely dictate the true avoided costs. As if we lower their kilowatt hour usage, they may be able to move to a different rate schedule, and that's what's hard about operating throughout the United States, is knowing when those thresholds happen. But jumping into it a little bit further, we can see here down at the bottom that the avoided cost on this one, out of their 22 cents, that solar can actually avoid 17.1, which is actually really good. Not all projects will look that good, but it all depends on their rate schedule, and then what we call it, that I already touched on, the yield and the tilt and azimuth. You can see here with their $372,000 project cost, they are not in an energy community nor a low-income area, and we are not accounting for domestic content on this project. So they're just qualifying for the 30% tax credit. You can see there's a 40% depreciation if it's placed in service in 2025, and then there is an awesome incentive for Rhode Island, which is 75,000. So out of their 372 gross, after all tax credits, depreciation, they're 90,000. So clearly a 2.7-year payback with an internal rate of return of 28.9 is a good deal. John, anything you'd like to add on that one?
No, go back to the helioscope real quick. So
Yep.
anything under 7 years. So keep that in mind. Write it down, write it on your hand, tattoo it on your lower back, whatever you need to do. 7 years is the magic number for deals to pencil. And that's where the avoided costs, the cost of the project, the system size, they all balances out. So 7 years are high probability deals. We close those all day long. Like Chris says, we've closed double-digit ROIs before, but looking at this customer, just at a sniff test, if you got the bills to this facility and you looked at it in a Google Earth sense, you could say, hey, one, they're already a proven buyer. They already have solar. Two, their building has solar, which means the structural integrity of their building can more likely hold it in the other areas. And three, it's rooftop, so it's going to be the best value. It's going to be the least cost of installation versus carports ground mount. So there's a lot of upside to this. It's in an area of Rhode Island that has high energy cost, also a good. So this falls into a high probability deal. This is a good deal.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. I don't have anything else to add on that one. So that's a great deal. Obviously, if there are other incentives, it would look even better.
Let's do another good deal. I'm feeling
Perfect.
Feeling wild.
Let's go ahead and jump into this project. So this one here is a great project in California. Let's go ahead and get this one loaded. While that's loading, I'm going to come back to here and jump into that other project. So that one is. So while that design is loading, let's go ahead and jump into this one. Perfect. So this one here, you can see is a pretty large project. We're 1.3 megawatts. You can see the azimuth we have at about 215 with a 10-degree tilt as well. One thing that's very important is making sure you're accounting for the proper setbacks or fire code requirements. The other obviously important thing is in your preliminary designs is making sure that you're accounting for the height of the HVAC units or any keep outs that are up there. That's very important because you obviously do not want to put panels behind there. So when you're considering a good deal, bad deal, just make sure you're always accounting for how much HVAC and setbacks. These big orange lines are what we call fire breaks. That's going to be required by code when you're going to pull permit through engineering. So let's go ahead and jump into the numbers on this one. This one here, you can see we got several different meters. There's several different tenants. There's an EV meter, a house meter, and then several tenants. So what we have to break down here is each of those tenants collecting their usage for the past 12 months, and coming up with a true, avoided cost for all of these. So you can see with each of these, we have 100% offset on all the meters. We have a total of 1.3 megawatts and an avoided cost of 19.5 cents. So that means that with this high of an avoided cost, we can charge a higher price per watt, and it's still going to be a great return for the customer. And if we look at that here, this project costs us $3.4 million. They get 2.3 million and some change in rebates and incentives. That's tax credits, depreciation, state depreciation. Some states allow state depreciation, some do not. That's another thing that's very important. This one, you can see that we do have adders built into that, where we did check those maps, and it looks like we have energy community. So that's an extra 10% on top of the 30. With all that said, you can see here, this payback period is 2.9 years and an internal rate of return of 28.4% again. Let me just touch on one more thing. You'll notice how each of these meters are going to be a different avoided cost. This specific meter has a 23 cents per kilowatt hour charge on this specific rate schedule, GS2 TOU, with an option E. There's a few different options, but you can see that out of all of these different meters, that avoided cost fluctuates. So when you're running a project, you want to see what the blended is between all of them. And that's going to dictate your pricing and whatnot. So all of this, $260 a watt. Great deal. John, anything you want to add on that one?
No, it is a great deal. This one happens to be in California. Usually big projects are great deals in California, but they're not everywhere else. Where I sit in Arizona, the bigger you get doesn't mean that they're better. And why is that? Is because of rate schedules, right? The small and medium have small demand charges. The large rate plan has massive demand charges. And solar, again, going back to training, doesn't really offset. It can, but on paper, it won't offset all of their demand, depending on when their peak demands are. But that's one thing I would take a look at. Is this is also a multi-tenant building that the owner owns the building and leases out all the space. This is not owner occupied. So we are helping this tenant with putting solar all over the roof and then selling the power through individual PPAs to his individual tenants. And so that's another service that WattHub offers, that we can really make lemonade out of lemons and help multi-tenanted buildings go solar. Now we know that NEM 3 kind of killed aggregation in VNEM, which was our plan, but because there's a handful of tenants, there's not that, it's less than 10. We can do individual PPAs and individual interconnections and still make it a great deal for the customer.
Great. One last thing I'd like to point out on this one is you guys will notice in this demand column, some of these tenants have demand charges because they're on a demand rate schedule. 2 of them do not. So that's one thing, is when you're factoring in a true avoided cost, that's what we ask a lot of people is, hey, we'll get a project brought to us and they say, hey, we need financing for this project. And I say, well, is there demand charges, or what's the avoided cost? And they'll either say what's avoided cost, or they'll make up a number of 12 cents or 18 cents, or they may actually know. But that's one thing that can vary drastically. You can see here, without demand charges, the avoided cost is much higher, where with demand charges, solar can only offset a little bit of their demand. You can see a 24,000 before solar, 20,000 after. That's with 100% offset. So it's only 19.8 cents true avoided cost. We see so many times other solar companies out there using Aurora, Solo, Siton, Open Solar to propose a commercial solar project. But guess what? Those do not take into account
Demand
costs. Yep. And it's kind of a big deal, John.
It is a big. It's the. They will find out. The customers are savvy enough in business to find out if your solar savings is your actual solar savings, and then if you need financing, then they're definitely going to find out, because financing, no one's going to lend money, or no one's going to issue PPAs without doing the proper due diligence with Energy Toolbase and all that. So how does one, this is a question for you, Chris, how does one figure out how to enact post-solar rate schedules and how to figure out what rate schedule they're on and demand charges, and how would they do that if they don't have Energy Toolbase?
Right. The only way that they would be able to is a lot of legwork, which essentially means they need to call the utility company, get a list of all their rate schedules, but then they need the definition of each of those rate schedules. Give a quick example to go a little deep into it. Is nicing with Energy Toolbase is I can come in and look at that rate schedule I just pointed out, the GS2 TOU, and within Energy Toolbase, it shows me their customer charge per month for that fancy piece of paper that comes in the mail, the kilowatt hour energy charges on the winter versus summer, their mid, off, super off, and on peak times. Talk about robbery. Sorry, side note. And then exports. So the other piece in here is knowing the thresholds and getting all of this applicable facilities from the utility company can be a challenge, or where to find it. So this basically shows if the customers use X amount within a 12-month period. As you see there, some rate schedules are, if it's in a 3-month period and they go over X kilowatt hours, they'll move them to a different rate schedule. So that's what's very important, because the last thing that you want to do is tell the customer they're going to be saving. Let me pull up this here to show. Is if I show, hey, you got 100% offset, your electric bill before are these combined, the 62,000 and 50,000. This is these two combined here. But you can see is after, let's just focus on the kilowatt hours. Apologies. So, but before it's 50,342. And if I say, hey, 100% offset, your kilowatt hours, you're only going to get a bill for 10 grand. You're going to be saving 40 grand. But I do not take into account demand. Look what happens is they're still going to be slapped with $9,300 on top of that 10,000. So now what have I done? Right? I've overpromised and I'm going to underdeliver. And they're going to be pretty upset. So,
or you could work smarter and not harder and pay $79 and have our wizardry do it for you.
There you go.
All
perfect.
Right, Chris,
So
let's jump into, I want to see last good deal. I want to see a good deal of carports, because we haven't talked about that. We've done a lot of rooftop.
Okay.
Rooftops are usually good deals. Let's pull up a carport job.
Yep. More expensive, heavy gauge steel, higher wind loads, requirements. Let's go ahead and open up Rockfield Plaza. This is a project that we have been working on, and this one is under contract, ready to move forward. This is a combination of rooftop, as you can see, and some carports. So with these, obviously the cost, this is going to be a different cost per type of racking, as everybody should know on the call. Let's go ahead and open up the proposal for that one. We're going to open up this guy. Again, having the right tilts and azimuths, very important. Having the right module size, whatever you're going to be using, obviously important. But let's go into this one. So Rockfield Plaza, this is a medical association. There's a bunch of doctors within this building. It's an HOA, which makes it a little bit more complicated. Is all of the doctors own their own suites, and the HOA manages the facility. So what we're doing on this project is we are doing a power purchase agreement, because the HOA is a nonprofit, and there wasn't one of the owners that said, well, I'll provide all the capital and also power to the tenants. So the HOA is going to do that. They're going to, it's all common, master metered. So the HOA is going to take on the PPA, and then the owners get a discount for what they're paying monthly for the power, just because they divide it by how many tenants there are. Going into this one, let's open up that proposal here. So on this one, you can see that we have these priced a little bit differently. We have rooftop penetration, rooftop, and carport down here. We have the carports priced at $495 a watt, and then we have these rooftops at $420 watt. That's just because we're doing a lot of PPA work. We've been working with a loan lender that denied the project. Then we brought in a PPA company, one of the biggest in the country, but they had the challenge of this HOA. They don't keep a lot of reserves in their account. So it was hard for them to say, yes, we want to go ahead and be the owners of this PPA. So they denied it. We went back to found another lender, and that's one thing that's helps and sets us apart is we have a lot of different lenders that we work with, and we can speak PPA and avoided cost. So on this one, let's jump into here. We're at 1.3 million. We just didn't show any incentives because it was a PPA. We have an avoided cost of 21.5 cents for this master meter. And if I jump down into here, you can see that we're providing a PPA rate that's 16.5 cents. We know how to price PPAs because we own PPAs. I own some myself, John owns some, our entities own some, and we work with a lot of different tax equity investors. In order for an investment group to lend on a PPA, they want to see a true avoided cost, and then they need to show savings to the customer in year one. And that's why we have to be below that 21 cents. We came in it with a 16.5 cent PPA. So that provides quite a bit of savings to the customer. You can see here electric bill savings year one is $107,000. That's with no money out of pocket, no maintenance, no repair, no monitoring. And over the term of that PPA, you can see they're going to be saving over $4.4 million. That's if, and assuming that the utility company only goes up 4.5%. If any of you live in California, sell in California, you know it's a lot higher than that. Yep, a lot higher than that. So we, again, we love to under promise and over deliver. John, anything you'd like to touch on this one?
No, carports cost a lot of money. There's underground that also costs a lot of money. So the constructability of this is a lot. It's a higher cost of project. So there's a lot of people think they can do this for, really inexpensive, like in the threes. So you can't build carports in the threes unless you're, 500 kilowatts or above. So just the steel alone in California is probably $1 to $1.15 a watt, just steel, and having them put it up. So that's the cost adders of some projects in California. But again, this all falls back into low, medium, high probability. And this one, because the avoided cost is 21 cents, you could pretty much finance it any which way under the sun, have the customer not pay anything, and make them money.
Perfect. Thanks for touching on that. One thing I'm going to point out here that's really key in pricing projects too is understanding where there's going to be a glare study required. And typically, close to airports, different things like that. That's one thing you have to keep in mind. On this one, we believe we're not going to need one. But a glare study, the cities, when we go to pull a permit, a lot of times they'll need a glare study. You need to know how much those cost. So pricing accordingly to that. The other thing that we might run into is some landscaping. Sometimes we have to bring in a landscape architect because you can see here, if I remove this tree, or excuse me, if I remove these arrays, you can see there's a few trees here that we're most likely going to have to cut down. When we go to pull a permit through the city, a lot of times they'll say, well, you're cutting down that tree. You need to replace it with some type of other bush or tree or greenery. We want a landscaping plan for what you're going to add. So that's another thing you always have to take into account, and why we priced up a little bit higher, as those things can suck, but you gotta obey the cities to be able to get projects complete.
Additional engineering, Alta surveys, title reports, all the stuff that is nowhere near residential. We get it all. So when we go to pull a permit, a lot of cities think that we're building a new building, and they subject us to requirements that landscape, civil, plot plans, Alta surveys, title reports, crazy stuff. That we had one city say, I need you to get a botanist report because you're trimming a tree, and making sure that the trimming isn't going to kill it. It's ridiculous. So there's a lot of stuff we deal with. So pricing a project without experience behind the estimation side of it, we've lost a lot of blood and sweat a lot in our 16 years, so we know better, and that's another reason why to team up with us. Yep. Well, let's jump into it. Who wants to see some bad deals? Bad deals. They're not bad deals. They're just low probability. Yeah. No deal is a bad deal. We'll take a look at anything, so don't get discouraged if we don't like it. But We want to make sure that you're spending your time wisely. We want to make sure you're spending your time so you can see a paycheck.
But
That
John, I have a really big project. It's 7 megawatts.
it's huge, huge 7 megawatt project. That's wonderful. It has to pencil, and I'm probably going to make $1 million on
Yeah, I think I would at least need that. Um, so let's jump into this one. So obviously, solar and we kind of get paid the bigger the deal, but as the very first slide, and if you're just jumping on, this is recorded, so you'll see it. But in one of the slides John touched on was the EPC cost to build and the avoided cost. That's what dictates a low to medium or high probability. So this project is a perfect example. We were really excited to hear that a partner brought this one to us. Was really excited to get a proposal design together, and he wanted, I think it was $190,000 built into it for him. This one's a bunch of ground mounts, so some facing to the east here, a bunch facing to the south with the inter-row spacing that's proper, a bunch of the setbacks, keep outs. But let's go ahead and jump into the proposal itself and show you what we have there. So 7.9 megawatts, all ground mounts. Obviously, ground mounts more expensive than rooftop because we have to bring in trenching, boring, footings, and that can get really expensive. So one thing I'll show right here is the first thing we always look at when we get a project is obviously the state. States will typically tell us what we believe the avoided cost will be. On this project, their cost per kilowatt hour, because they use so much and they got a good deal with the utility company, they're on a rate schedule LCP with APWV. They're only 4 cents per kilowatt hour. That's hard to beat. But their demand, you can see, is 25.73. Between these two, there's some taxes and fees that are going to be added to their bill. But if we look at this project, we ran out of ground space for them to use because the rest of it's being utilized for other things. This is only an 8% offset. So we need clearly a much larger system. But if we look at their avoided cost, we're offsetting some of their demand right here. So it's helping their avoided cost go up a little bit from where they're at. But if we look at this, look how aggressive we have to get on that. $1.62 with the rebates and incentives. We got $12 million project, 5.1 in tax credits. It looks like we have an adder of energy community and low income. But we're only accounting for 40% just because the low income is you have to apply for it, not guaranteed. So we always just let the customers know that. And then the depreciation. But this is an 8.6-year return on investment and a 10.1% on an internal rate of return.
Yeah, not quite that 7 year that we're striving for, and there's no room to go lower. So you can look at a project and you can understand if there's a little bit of fat in it that you can cut off, and we do that quite often. Is it going to make a deal? High probability. Let's just price it aggressively. But this, you can't really get much lower than that because the interconnection points of this are also half a mile away, so your underground costs are through the roof. So this is where the 5.4 cents in avoided cost, even though it's huge, really doesn't do it justice.
Yeah. You can see, like John said, as the interconnection points, we have one here, and then we have another over here, another over here. So there's quite a few with this one. So that $1.62, or where were we? Excuse me, right here. So that $1.62 is getting pretty aggressive for a ground mount. So,
yep.
Yeah. Anything else on that one, John?
No, I don't think so. I mean, this is a deal that with the champion, the last key to commercial success is having a champion. If the champion is there, I bet you we could sell that 8.6-year ROI. This was a customer that just said, look, if it's like a no-brainer and it's under 4-year ROI, I'll do it, but I don't want to look at it. You don't want those guys. Those people who are just in it to make a fast return, they're tough sells. So it may be better to use your resources and efforts on different projects.
One last thing I'll touch on before we move on to the next one is the other thing obviously business owners want, even homeowners as well, is just a 100% offset. the more we offset, the more is a fixed price versus a variable with the utility company. So, all right, let's move on to another one. We are going to pull up a bad deal in California, believe it or not. Not all of them are great. So let's go ahead and bring up that one. So let's jump into here.
You mean
And I'm gonna
colleges are bad deals? They're not bad.
California with PG&E. Perfect. Let's go ahead and jump into this guy. So this one's a little bit smaller of a project. But we can see here, this one's a car wash. These ones can be really, really hard because there's not a lot of roof space. This one you can see they have skylights to try to provide some light through the tunnel. Roof's in really bad shape with 4-foot fire code setbacks from the edge of the roof. You can see we're just not going to be able to fit anything. So what does that automatically mean? We need to look at a ground mount or carport structure. This building is not there, so we can't utilize this property, but this is all of theirs. So we're looking at doing a drive lane all over the drive access area where they pull out and dry off the cars, and then a parking area over here. So because these are such small carports, it's going to be very expensive to bring in that steel. So this project makes it really tough. So if we open up this one here, we can see here, because it's so small, we have, this is with a dealer fee. As customer could not pay cash, so we also have to put a dealer fee on top with the loan that we're working with. But to build the carports plus the dealer fees, we're $585 a watt on this. We got a 90-degree azimuth with a 10-degree tilt, 180-degree azimuth with a 10-degree tilt, and this is providing a 68% offset. The reason why we stopped right there, we did not go larger, is because of a few things. The first thing is, jump over to here, is what we call the export rate. When you're on net metering 3.0, you don't want to be exporting more than 40%. We try to keep it below even 35%. What this helps with is also a higher avoided cost. They have a high avoided cost, like we've talked about. It's 24.2 cents per kilowatt hour out of their 24, so that's really good. But what we run into is, because of the cost it's going to take to build this, you can see their gross system cost is $338,000. They get state depreciation, the tax credit, the federal depreciation, and you can see here this one's a 6-year payback. But we had to stop at the 68% offset and 15% internal rate of return. So this one makes it tough. You'd think 6 years is not bad, but the cost to build this is just pretty high. So the owner on this one was expecting to be a lot lower. John, anything you'd like to add on that one?
No, I mean, adders for commercial small carports. You're looking at $2 a watt to get somebody to come in and fabricate and erect the solar structures and mount modules. It's a $2 watt adder, and then when you have to throw a dealer fee on top of that, just small projects are tough. So I wouldn't call this low probability. This might fall into medium probability based on the avoided cost of 24 cents, but it's a complicated build, and so anytime you're putting anything in the ground. So another question came in from an anonymous member about environmental impact studies. Some cities require them. So with a small project, if you have to do any environmental or civil work, that could be a huge cost per watt into the project. And so there's a million ways a commercial deal can die, and we do our best to hedge and navigate through those waters, but sometimes cities have they beat to their own drum and they come up with some crazy stuff. But car washes are tough. I mean, look at the roof. You can't fit anything on it. So they use a ton of power for a little building, and usually we'd have to stuff solar in a carport or structure space.
Yep. All right. Let's go ahead and jump into another one. I'm going to show one that a lot of people run across. This one is another small one located in California. Go ahead and open up that guy. While that's loading, I'll come back. So here's one a lot of people run across. Gas stations. Gas stations, they do not make a lot of money. That's one thing that can be very hard, is they only make money off of convenience, whatever they're selling inside the store, right? Those monsters, those candies, those donuts, whatever it is inside, that's where they make their money. They don't make the money off the gas. The challenge we run into with gas stations is these structures that are always out front that everybody knows about. They are typically not built to hold weight. They are built to have shade, cover from rain when people are getting out of their car. So most of the time, if it's an old existing gas station, maybe if it's maybe a year old or it's to be built, that's where they're going to have, you can work with their contractor that's building it to make sure that that's reinforced or it's built to hold the weight. So most of the time you're going to have to come in and put some more steel across these. The other thing is you have to find out the footings. And then depending on where their electrical is on the building, if the electrical is here on this corner, look where the holding tanks are. Underneath all of this concrete, you can see there's asphalt over here, but under the concrete is where all the gasoline sits underground. And if we're going to have to do underground, that's where you can run into very expensive, or you won't be able to even do that run. So it'd be something where you're going to have to come out, close down their front door area, or you're going to have to go around or even up and over, which can get very expensive. And then how you interconnect to that can get very costly as well. The other challenge with gas stations is they typically are very small. You can barely fit much up there. This is 7.2 kilowatts with 550 watt modules. John, anything on design side that I didn't touch on you'd like to?
No, I think you covered a lot. It's a high energy user and a low footprint, and that doesn't bode well for solar.
Yep. So on this project, you can see here is we have a system. We're at, let's see, we got PV battery. Let me just dissect this one really quick. M3, PV only. So right here, you can see we proposed two different types of models here. Batteries can get very expensive. The reason why we're doing batteries on this one was to, one, get them to a different rate schedule, where you can see it gets rid of their demand charges. It does make their kilowatt hour charges go up from 24 cents that they're currently on, but that demand is pretty high. You can see here, now we're at 100% offset. And if we're going NEM 3 with 100% offset, we want to make sure that we're not avoiding exporting a ton of power. This deal does work because does not work because with the battery sizing, moving this to the rate schedule with that kilowatt hours, you're still exporting 56% of the power. And we can see here that a cash purchase on this one's 7.8 years and 11.5% internal rate of return. Let me just see the PV only. On that one, we're 432 for a 32 kilowatt system, and again, 8.5 years. John, anything else you'd like to add on that one?
Nope.
Okay.
All set. Let's jump into a couple so-so deals. We got 5 minutes left. I think we can knock out these two deals, and then we'll start questions thereafter at the top of the hour.
Perfect. So let's jump into this guy while that's opening here. Feel better. Perfect. So here's a project, good size project, 913 kilowatts. Oh, one thing I didn't touch on that gas station was customer needed financing. The financing just did not cash flow on that 8.6 year return. But here's a just shy of a megawatt. You can see we did account for all the keep outs, setbacks, HVACs, different things like that. Let's go ahead and jump into this one for the so-so. And let's see. So on this project, we can see that it's all rooftop. And this project here is coming out to be a 14.5 year return on investment with a 4.8% internal rate of return. Most of this is because when they're interconnecting, they have to go to a different rate schedule. They're at 4 cents per kilowatt hour. They'd go up to an 11 cents per kilowatt hour and $2.90 per kilowatt. So this one's a $5.1 million project cost, 30% with adders. So that has an low income adder in it of 40%, and an appreciation solar 2 million. So John, anything you'd like to add on that one?
On the surface, it looks like a good deal. 913 kilowatts roof mount. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Where's my $500,000 check? Well, when you dive into the numbers, that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's why we're showing you our back end, gold here is to take a look. This is a long ROI. This is a tough sell. It's in Colorado where they have relatively low avoided costs. So if you're a lead generator or a sales rep or someone who prospects, you're going to want to take a look at that map that we showed earlier and figure out where the higher avoided costs are. Because the last thing we need you to do is put time and effort into gaining leads and prospects and then have them all not close. Commercial solar already takes a long time to cash for a paycheck compared to residential. And so we want your efforts laser focused.
All right. Let's jump into the last one here real quick. We can open it up. Let's see, TFDOB right here. Let's go ahead and jump into this one. So here's a project, another one in California. You can see we got a lot of HVACs on this, skylights, HVACs, vents, pipes, ducts, different things like that. This area here is where they already have some carports that are already built without solar. So we just put that there knowing that we can't design there. And those carports cannot hold the weight of the system. This orange, we just built that out so we know where the electrical room is or where we're running the conduit. This one here, you can see this carport system. We are sitting at 125 kilowatts. And on that project, we can see there's a few different things that we built out. So carport solar, and this is in a rural area of California. And you can see that we played around with it where we put a REAP grant, a rural grant there that can cover up to 50% of the project cost. And then we left one with just the solar carport. You can see just the carport were 5.7 years, which isn't too bad. That's with the $4.70 a watt to build that. If we drop in a REAP, watch what this one does. We're still at that 470 a watt. We add in the REAP, and now it brings the payback period down to 9 months. That's a service that we do here at WattHub is write grants. We're very familiar with how that works and what is needed from the clients in order to do that and submit for those. Since this is a REAP, typically means that you can charge a higher cost per watt to the customer, and they're still going to have a great return. And if we look at that, for $597,000, they get the depreciation from the state, the tax credit with the adder of what is it here? Low income and REAP. You can see the depreciation and then that grant, and their net system cost $131,394. So they're getting essentially paid to go solar, and that return on investment with us increasing it, we're 0.9 year payback still. So super aggressive on that. This client, after seeing this one, he said he wanted to check out his other 4 or 5 locations. So pretty exciting on that one. John, anything you'd like to add on that?
No, this one it just happens to be in a very rural part of town. So when it's eligible for REAP grant, that sometimes means it's in a weird part of town, away from metropolis, away from cities, which this one is like on the border of Mexico. So it's right down there, far away from Arizona, far away from mainland Southern California. So it's a little bit pricier to install.
Perfect. I'll turn the time back over to you, John. I think that's it for from Dale.
All right. Well, jumping back into it, we're going to wrap this thing up. I know we've gone 1 hour with some slides, avoided costs, some tricks and trades, and then going over 8 projects that, and the nuances of those to figure out, help train everybody to find these good deals and not be so afraid to say, this one's not good. Let's go to the next one. You can submit projects, we develop them, we revenue share with you, and you get our expertise, our wizardry, and all of that stuff in proposals. then we can handle that. So we're built for scale, we're built for speed, and that's the beauty of WattHub. That concludes good deal, bad deal, so-so deal.
Thank you so much, John and Chris, for all of the fantastic insight and information as to what makes a good or bad commercial solar deal. I appreciate everyone being on the call today. And as always, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So until next time, have fun storming the castle. Bye now.